welcome to the episode of DIOTALK. I'm Dio. Let's talk. My guest of the evening, he is the co-founder of Voltage Digital Marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Neil Twa. Welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Doing great.
It's an honor having you on. I've been researching everything you've been doing, amazing things with your brand new book and your business. It's a lot of things to discuss. So you know what? I'll leave the floor up to you. The floor is yours.
Well, let's get into it, right? So we're talking e-commerce, my favorite topic, beyond business building or acquiring businesses, which is also my new favorite topic, but it's been a favorite of mine for a long time. I'm just now really pushing hard into it. Thinking about that, but really those who are aspiring entrepreneurs or, wanting to get into the growth of entrepreneurialism or in a business, maybe around physical products or wanting to grow multi-channel or omni-channel, that's kind of what we're talking about here today. I focus on multiple channels of sales, and e-commerce is a big component of what I've done for the last 11 years, specifically in the physical product private label world, although I've been out on my own since 2007. So 17 years in the building businesses offline and online, in high tech, oil and gas, in mobile, and obviously physical products and digital commerce. So it's been a lot of time for overnight success. Building to that.
So like what 17 years in the business, right? Longevity is everything. Obviously you have that in your business. Before we dive into what are you offering for the audience, for future clients, what inspired you to jump on the entrepreneur bandwagon and just start yourself, become your own business?
Well, my dad he's a hardworking dude. He was a two-tour Vietnam vet. He was the second up buttercup kind of guy. And fixing the cars and working with him was just a lesson in manhood. So, but he worked hard and he provided for our family, and no shame in the game. He's 82 now and he lives up the hill from us, and we get to see him as much as we can. He's turned into a big softy guy. I have 4 daughters, and 4 granddaughters will soften an old man pretty good. But he was a hard guy to grow up with, only because he was very strict and very just kind of hard going, very unapproachable emotionally, really at the end of the day. And he was, in our house, because dad provided, but he didn't provide above. Money was a 4-letter word. He just didn't bring it up, because anytime he talked about it, it was disrespectful. He was bringing it home. Mom was making it stretch. You get what you need. That's it. Like, you get what you need, shut up. So anything else above that we might want or to do or to have or whatever, you just don't bring it up. We learned that very early. So as I got into like 12, 13, 14, I want to make some side hustle cash because I want some money. I wanted something to, buy some, kicks. I want to do something with my family. It wasn't my family. And I wanted to, just be a kid who had some cash, and I had to go start mowing lawns. So I learned really early to just get out there, and, I went door to door and I sold my neighbors, and pretty soon had 3, 4, 5 lawns, and I'm making a little bit of money, and, I'm having some extra cash, and that kind of stuck with me. And then, technology started to come in a lot more. We were doing, and I'm going to date myself, AOL dial-ups and message boards. And we didn't have a computer because we weren't, that family. So I went to my friend's house where he had a computer and got to learn more about what that was, and was like, wow, this is cool. But still, it was just dial-up, right?
Yeah.
But I actually went to school on a full ride music scholarship. I was going to be a musician and play classical music and jazz. And went to a little liberal arts college where I got almost a full ride between work study and other money. So nobody really had to pay for it. I just worked and I went to school. But the internet came online, and I was like, dude, this is something else. Like, we're doing a little inbox, and it's very basic. And I really quickly went over and sold myself into the IT department, because that's where the computers were. And that's where they were literally cleaning out the bottom of the basement of the library to put the first computer lab in. And no one knew how to put them together or power them up or build them or fix them or whatever. And I just dug in with my hands and just started figuring it out, right? And that was like early stages of things, and very quickly found that I didn't want to get into the tech much. I wanted to be in like the business. I wanted to be in the e-commerce. I wanted to know how to make money. So I started a little website, Bargain Guys, where we were just kind of like a little mini localized eBay, where I was just taking listings and getting people to sell stuff between each other. And I was just hooked on the business, any way possible. So by my 3rd year, and twice failing out because I didn't actually want to be in college, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And so I didn't actually apply to go to college until my last semester of my freshman year of high school, because I went to go take the test and they put me in the cockpit. And because of my height above my waist to my head, they couldn't close the cockpit. So they're like, you're out. Which is funny because I only had one other guy ever tell me a story very similar to that rejection, only he was too tall. So he could sit in the seat and they could close the cockpit, but his legs were too long. So he was jammed into the dash and he couldn't go. And that's what he wanted to do as well. And I'm like, you're the only guy I've ever talked to who ever had a similar story. that was our path. We didn't put in for college. We didn't do any of that. We were going for the Air Force. Turns out God has a funny way of directing your path. Imagine that. If I had gone in, been accepted, gone through the training, actually become certified fighter pilot, I would have went straight into combat in Desert Storm. And the first time we actually sent conflict for a long time in America. So I would have gone straight into that. And that wasn't my mission after all. Yeah. But the internet was, and business, and I jumped into it and went full bore. But the thing is, it was so new. Internet was crazy. 95, 96, 97, leading into 99's .com bubble. Just money was flowing like insane everywhere, yes. But in academia. And so I had to jump out and go to the corporate world because that's where the money was being spent. That's where the money was being invested. That's what was happening, right? You just couldn't learn it in any, track. There was nobody teaching it. There was computer sciences, but that was like COBOL.
Yeah, especially on a bigger scale.
Yeah, on a bigger scale. It's like, no, I want web technologies. I want about the internet. And like, no, we're doing, Fortran and green screen. We're doing COBOL. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do any of that stuff. And so I jumped out and, went after it. I got into the corporate world, taught myself how to program, became a programmer, and then started programming databases, staying up till 2 a.m, learning how to do it, and then going to work the next day. I was in a contract role with a company called Sprint out of Kansas City. You may have heard of them. But they launched this little mobile division, and they said, hey, we're going to be pulling all these people in. And I was a contractor, and they're like, hey, you can apply if you want to get a job at this new division called Sprint PCS. We're launching mobile phones. It's this big new wave, and we want to hire as many people as we can. I'm like, what the heck, man? So I just threw my hat in the ring, and I got a job. So at 20, I went to work for Sprint, managing a team of 5 people who oversaw the intranet of all of the support of all the customer reps and internal people who were building the phones and launching the phones and supporting the questions and answers. I had like 50,000 web pages. There was 5 people on this team, and I was 20, and they were like average age of dead. So I was trying to learn how to manage all these older people while doing this job, while getting involved. And turns out I had a pretty good aptitude. I did really well at it. And in 5 years, when that company grew from 5,000 employees, I was like badged 5,000 something in there to over 80,000 people in 5 years. So I got to see that mobile industry in Sprint just blow up from the inside out. And by that point, we were doing, machine language learning and knowledge management and systems and all these super cool things. And IBM came in and said, hey, we want to fix some of the stuff you're breaking. And I made friends with one of the partners. And it really struck me that you should, people paying attention to this, if you're still listening, it's who you know that keeps you there. And it's who you know that gets you in. And it's what you know that keeps you there. Relationship-driven business is really, at the end of the day, all of business in a nutshell. Whether you sell products or services, you sell yourself, it's all about relationships. And I hadn't fully understood that until I watched this guy, a partner at IBM with a Yale law degree, maneuver these conversations and stuff was just elegance. Like I was just astounded by his ability to do this. And so I made friends with him. I did whatever was possible to get next to this guy. And for spent about a year learning from him and in the relationship until one day he's like, hey, you're doing a great job. I'd like you to come to work for IBM. And I'm like, really? And so he said, yeah, you got to go to Armonk. You do this, song and dance. So they flew me out to Armonk. Little did I know, not until much later on, that he had prearranged the whole thing. So I just showed up, did the glad handing. I'm so nervous, right? And by that point, I'm like 22, 23. And I'm like, let's actually, no, it would have been 24, 25. Get myself wrong here. Long story, he goes, you got to do this. So I did it. And, sweat and beads, right? And turns out the whole thing was prefixed. They already hired me. They just wanted to meet me. I took longer to get out there than it took to actually do the meeting, the handshake. And then I was an IBMer. No degree, only experience, just, figure it out. So they handed me a laptop, an Amex card, and a cell phone. And they said, go for it. And so we called it I've Been Moved, IBM, because I traveled all the time. I averaged like 100+ days a year. The last year I was there, I traveled over 200 days that year. I was your constant road warrior on project after project. I got to see the inside of some amazing companies. I got to hang out in downtown New York and Manhattan, go to the financial district, got to work with Thomson when it was acquiring Reuters and helping make that deal. I got to sit in the boardrooms. I got to be in Seattle and sit at the top of the Seattle, Verizon company, and got to just see all this amazing stuff I never would have access to before. And it just expanded my mind and just was like, dang. But I always had that side hustle thing. I always had that, I wanted to get out. I want to do my own thing. It just wasn't the right time. And so I just kept following. And about 2007, it became the right time because I realized I kind of capped myself out. I didn't want to be a partner. So I didn't want to keep progressing up the corporate chain. And I didn't really know 100% what I wanted to do in business. I just knew I didn't want to be in it. I only spent the last 10, 11, 12 years doing it because that's what I had to do. right? There was nowhere else to learn, nowhere else to go. So I did it. I followed the path. If somebody said, here's a great job, I went for it. And if there's like, here's the project you get, I went for it. It's like, just kept going for it, right? And so 2007 came around and they're like, we're sending your job to Argentina. You can take early retirement, or you can go back to the base salary and go apply in a new division somewhere else and start over. I looked at my new wife, who had just married in March of 2007, and I said, hey, are you up for an adventure? And she's like, I'm down for anything. So I left the company in June, and we started our new adventure together, our new life, new adventure, which, when they say, everybody's like, when's the right time to start a business? Someone on here might be listening and be like, I don't know when to start a business. Maybe he's going to tell me when to start a business. When's the right time? What's the right amount of money? What's the right business to do? How can I, get to this thing? And I will just say, you got to fail forward, man. You just have to fail forward. I got married, lost my job, was, living off some savings. She was an RN, so she was making some money and kind of helping the bills go along. And then we got pregnant, all in the same year. And then due to health complications, she went on bed rest and couldn't work. So she went on medical leave for a little bit in December of that year. So in 1 year, we went from high income dual people to, getting married, to leaving and starting a company, to getting pregnant, to her on bed rest, to no income, all in the first year of our marriage. Talk about a trial by fire, right?
Oh, man, I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah.
I love the way how you put yourself in, like, where you learn in that trajectory. Like, you can't learn in school.
No, there was no way to teach me.
No, yeah, you put yourself in these predicaments, and like every place you went, you learned something valuable.
I just kept learning up, right?
Yeah,
and I would stay up till late.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah.
I had a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of fear that I was going to be found out as a poser, because I'm in these companies doing this work and I'm like, I don't have a degree, and these people all have degrees and I don't have this experience, and they've got all this experience. And
dude,
I just kept waiting for them to figure out that I was a poser.
No, man, never. You're the realest person there.
I figured it out. And, I ran into all kinds of crap during that time frame in the corporate world that just pissed me off. And because it was limiting my ability to do things, it was even more angry. Like I was the highest performing person in the group, yet they, and they had to give me the bonus, yet I kept getting reminded by upper management that I was only getting it because I had the performance, but other people deserved it. I heard that crap way long ago, right? Before this other stuff all started. And it was like they were trying to constantly hold me down. So whenever I had a chance to get out, I'm like, yeah, I'm bailing. Like, I'm out of this. Like, you guys you're holding me down. I have so much more I think I can do, and I want to push and see how far I could go. I don't care if I fail. I'm just going to keep going. And every step of the way, someone felt rejection in the corporate world from me. They felt I was jeopardizing them, or that this wasn't good enough. And I ran that all the way through the last end of IBM. In fact, it happened that I was sitting at one of the last projects at the last kind of group meeting before we all exited. We had dinner and this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting around, and it just dawned on me. I'm listening to all these people, 10, 20, 30 years older than me. And they had been in their corporate life that whole time, which is cool. It's not, it's for everybody, but it's not for me. And I was just listening to them explain their lives. And in one instance, it just hit me like it was a conditional moment where the reality met this facade that I had lit in, and I just cracked through it for a second as I was listening to this man talking to his daughter about how he missed her school dance. He was on the phone at dinner. Yeah, daddy will be home soon. Sorry, I missed it. Can't wait to do it. And it just struck me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I cannot be that guy in 30 years.
Wow.
Right? I just can't. I don't want to be 54 years old here talking to kids that I'm supposed to be a part of, listening on the phone, talking about what I missed. Like, I'm not going to do that. I will risk it all. Right? I didn't have kids at that point. I wanted kids, so I got married. And so I was like, no, this can't be it.
Wow.
This is not as good as it gets.
Yeah. So 2007 happened.
Yep,
you went on your own. You created this amazing business.
Well, like all the story goes, made $100 million, and that's the end of the story, right? No problems, no trials, no issues, no bankruptcies, no failed relationships, no bad partnerships, no fail. Dude, I could fill this room with the amount of failures I have, right? Products, services, business, corporate. I went bankrupt once. I admit it because I made a major mistake, leveraged in too far to a deal, much emotion, too much capital put into the deal, not enough capital coming back until the point that I discovered that the guys who were taking the money were not doing it ethically. So I had to go hire a lawyer and get myself indemnified from the business so that I didn't get wrangled up in investor funds, and I had nothing to do with it. So that was a strategic move, and I had to go bankrupt, which sucked. and learned a lot of lessons about what boundaries are, right? Boundaries, relationships, knowledge, leveraging in, looking at the hopium a little too heavy and not really looking at the practical stuff as, they say in Good to Great, looking at the rock and actually turning it over and looking at the nasty stuff under it. I just didn't want to do it. And I think a lot of us don't want to do it. They don't want to know what the risk was, because when we got into this, we were in it to win it. And so by the time we had built the home that we planned to stay in for the rest of our life after we got married, we both decided that it was better for us to keep that family structure, that purpose and value, than to, try to keep the business going while trying to keep the house, while trying to keep everything going and make everybody believe we were something we weren't. So we sold the house. We sold the cars. We gave ourselves time. We were willing to risk things that I think some people who are listening to this right now aren't willing to do. But Neil, you don't understand. But Neil, I have this. But Neil, I got a car. But Neil, I've got kids. But Neil, I've got a marriage. But Neil, my spouse doesn't agree, or this person doesn't want. But Neil, but Neil, but Neil. I need to coin that phrase. So, just a bunch of excuses. Yeah. But it's what you're not saying is, this is what I'm willing to do. And I said that. And my wife, God bless her, she was very well, you take that, I got this, she very much just let me go. And with that structure, I was able to do the things that I was not hindered by. I just did it. And she's such a great life partner for that reason. She didn't hold me back. She's like, we're going to be fine. We'll figure it out. Even when she was pregnant with our third child and we go down to the basement in Oklahoma to this dunk little place in front of a judge and put our financial life in his hands and say, hey, we made a mistake. We're willing to pay back. We're willing to make an agreement. And here she is pregnant, sitting in front of this judge with me, making a plan to pay back debt and get out of the problem. And I had a plan and we were going to work it. She was right beside me. And, it is a terrible location too, dude. Have you ever been to bankruptcy court?
No, but not far from there.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we always are. That's usually when you've seen the old meme, right? Where the guy's digging for the gold or the diamonds and he takes that. There's one last swing and he won't take it. Yeah. That's usually where everybody's real breakthrough comes. I know the meme is silly, but the truth is behind it. And I faced that. Of truth. Volumes. Right? It's so true. That last moment when you were like, do I risk it all? You do. Do I take that last swing? Is usually when you're going to break through.
Yeah. And I mean, why wouldn't you? You've gone that far, right?
Why, if you're not dead, right? And even then, I believe there's an afterlife. But for me personally, I'm not worried about that. But for my faith and belief, I'm like, look, this is my chance. Risk it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst that happens? I got family, I got friends. I'm going to land on a couch. It's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be sexy. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be all the things you think it's going to be, right? People are going to make fun of you. You're truly going to find out who your friends and family really are, which I think is a lot of people are really afraid of that. Honestly, they're really afraid of it. Because that condemnation coming from family and friends is difficult to hear. And I've faced it. I faced it down, right? And it's not fun. It's not fun. It hurts. And I think our, fear of that pain and the fear of that rejection is what holds so many people back from their true potential. And for a while, it was holding me back. And then I was like, screw it. I've been bankrupt. Now what? I can build this back. I can figure this out. And so I did. I just started going into advertising and mobile marketing. I had the experience. I had done some of it before. I'm like, look, I can figure this out. 299 campaigns later, in a mountain of credit card debt, I hit my gold. You got 300 campaign kicked off. All right. All of a sudden, I'm making $100 a day in profit. I'd never seen that before. What I was doing was mobile arbitrage on mobile ads between different countries and what are called cost per install offers. So what happens is they say, we'll pay $1.50 for every lead you send us. As long as I'm making that profitable, I make the difference. So if I cost me 50 cents, I make $1, cost me 75, so on and so on. So the deal, of course, is to just get really good at the mobile traffic. And sometimes the offers are $10, sometimes they're $30, sometimes they're $4. You just pick the offer you think you can go and you just market the crap out of it. It's called affiliate marketing, right? In this day and age, there was no Facebook ads. There was no Meta ads. There was no interfaces. I was uploading crap in spreadsheets. So this is a Hail Mary pass, right? The first web interfaces were coming online to even do what most people take for granted today, which is to go in, put a credit card into Meta and start firing them some ads. Yeah. I didn't have any of that, right? It was like, Hail Mary, here's $500. Let's see what happens. And it took me a lot of tries to figure out how to speak to somebody in a narrative and a customer response and sell them into a situation where they're willing to download an app and do it 1,000 times a day. And all of a sudden, that's what I figured out. And every campaign after that was crushing it until I was making more than $1,000 a day in profit. And at that point, it was very easy to turn around our lifestyle, turn around the debt, turn around the business, turn around everything. But if I had given up on campaign 299, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing.
Stubborn,
That's
tenacious.
I mean, man, it's wanting to breathe. As
Yeah.
simple as it is, wanting to breathe, right? Going
Yeah.
through everything you went through just to get right there.
Back against the wall, man. I didn't have anywhere to go it up. I have screenshots that I keep on my phone. And I've had them since we went bankrupt. In my bank account, $269. That was all that was in there. And I had 3 kids and a pregnant wife, by the way. My back was against the wall. I had to make it happen, right? Yeah. And here's the thing about my faith, as I now understand it through a walk. Maybe your faith, maybe somebody else listening to this. Definitely my story. I realized that I was waiting for somebody else to step in. I was even waiting for God to be like, hey, man, go this way. Or, hey, man, go talk to this. Hey, man, go do that. And what actually was discovered was silence. It was quiet. And in my mind, it was so loud, I couldn't have heard him if he'd whispered to me anyways. And that stubbornness, it just kept saying, just do something. Do anything. And so I started to walk, man. I just walked out in faith, like Peter on the water. I just went out. I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep doing this. And the more I kept trying, the more God was probably looking at me going, okay, he's actually serious. He actually wants this to get done. He's actually willing to do something about it. And that's when he showed up. And he showed up, and we needed $1,953 in our bank account to make our whole life run at net zero. My kids had medical issues. My wife had medical issues. We were paying for debt. We were paying for expensive formula. We had, a house to take care of and electricity bills and stuff. And $1,953 a month is what we needed to make our household work for that entire family at that point. And I don't even know how it happened, but from that $269 in the next month, $1,953 showed up. Exactly. Right? Wow. Give me one more month. One more month. One more month. At that point, I couldn't think past 30 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just one more month. One more month. Let's keep crawling. Let's keep crawling. Let's just see what happens, right? And then all of a sudden, it just started to go. And that led me into the realization that I could create a business out of this. And I had done very well in business before. To that point, I just got over leveraged. I got blinders on. I got, glass ceiling eyes. I couldn't see what I didn't want to see. And it was right in front of me, right? And as soon as it, scales came off, as soon as the conditioning was gone, as soon as it was just plain as day how I was being used and taken advantage of and how my financial system had gotten wrecked. But then to that point, I couldn't see it. I didn't want to, you know what I mean? I didn't want to see it. I was not willing to take the action to really look at it clearly and see it for what it was. And that was because of pain, rejection, hurt, family, friends, all the excuses and all the things that did occur. I had family that didn't really want to talk to me, or I had friends that left us who had been there, with my family and had grown up with the kids, and they just disappeared. Like, I didn't want that. You're a problem. We don't want to be around you anymore. And to this day, they're gone. Right. And so that hurts, it hurts for you, hurts for your family, hurts for the people around you. But, that led me into the realization that I had this skill set. I just had kind of found a niche in an area that if I had not tried and failed so many times to that point, I would have never figured out that's what I'm good at. Like, this is my thing. I can make it rain when it comes to conversations and network and marketing and online, and just developing a narrative and a brand story and developing the initial know, like, and trust relationship between a person, a contact, and a relationship. That's my skill set. And doing it through my own experience obviously adds more integrity when I say, well, here's what I did. Here's my experience. Here's how I got there. And I can show you how to do the same thing. Well, let me show you exactly what I've done, so you can see how we're going to walk this path. And here's how I failed at it. So don't go that way, because I already learned that experience, right? I lost millions of dollars over here and made millions over here. And you want to know how I did this. So stay away from that. Like, I've been able to show people that. And it's, over the years, it's done really well for myself and a lot of people. And one of the things I learned, and maybe some of you understand this, but I went through the affiliate marketing thing only to realize that I had built a glass house. I was just trading time for more money, but I was still caught in the same grind, right? Does that make sense? Because I was still spending my time to make the money. And when I stopped, it all stopped. I hadn't learned force multiplication. I hadn't learned how to replicate myself. I hadn't learned systems of replication. I hadn't learned about branding. All I was doing was just focused on that dollar. And I could see very quickly from experience that was going to lead to a bad trajectory. So I thought, okay, how do I control this whole thing? Well, I can control the marketing. I can control the narrative and the brand. I can obviously get people to buy things from me in a digital spec. What about doing it with a physical product? How do I connect this so I can own both sides of it? I can own the marketing. I can own the physical product. If I can collect that control, there's a lot less people that can jack with me, that can impact my business negatively. So I built a whole business. Surprise, right? I own the front end, I own the marketing, I own the products. It actually led me to Amazon. I discovered Amazon FBA in about 2012. And the reason I discovered it is because I was trying to take a way to not have a warehouse and hire employees. I didn't know how to do all that. And I was like, I don't want to do all that. It's not what I'm good at. It's not my lane. So I don't know how to do operations and management of people in that way. I'd never done it before. That's a hard learning lesson and probably very expensive. And I recognized it from my experience. So somebody said, hey, Amazon will do that all for you. It's called Fulfilled by Amazon, FBA. They'll handle all of it. They'll ship it to the customer. They'll do the returns. They'll do the management. You just focus on the brand, the marketing, and the product. And I'm like, okay, now you're speaking my language, dude. So I checked it out and I was like, wow, I can flip products on there. And that's how I started, flipping products, finding something low, buying low, selling high, sending it into Amazon. They would ship it to the customer. We get paid. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like a gold mine. So I just went into a group to learn how to do it more and found a guy who connected with me at the operations level. His brain and my brain, like two halves of the same coin. And he didn't understand the marketing and narrative and all this stuff because he was an operational guy by nature. And I didn't know the operations, logistics, and component of all that. And that's what he did. And I'm like, dude, in 1 hour, we had this conversation. And I'm like, we are going to do something together. And so now, coming up on almost 12 years later, wow. We've been partners ever since. He figured out the logistics and marketing. I figured out the component of building the brand and narrative. And we launched our first private label brand and got it to 7 figures around 2013. Wow. From there, it was just replication of systems and operations and controls and marketing and building. And people came along for the ride with us. They were like, hey, we watched what you're doing. How do we do it? At some point we had way too many people for free. So we started charging people to slow them down. And then we charge people more to slow them down. And then they're like, we got more results. So we charge more people. And pretty soon, by 2019, we're doing more corporate business, high level consulting, and kind of got back to management consulting for businesses and brands like I was doing at IBM. And we've launched multiple brands. We've got 8 under our control now. We've done more than 100 million in sales, probably closer to $500 million in sales on Amazon FBA through our channels, our direct 8-figure companies, and my client companies. Some have gone on to do 30, 40 million a year in sales. And now we manage companies and we're acquiring them. So we're moving through the quadrant. Boom.
Boom. Like that.
That's a long story, man. I was way too winded on that conversation.
No, but it's like you're able to tell you, like whoever hears this or watch this can see your whole journey.
I hope so, because it's somebody else's journey too. Somebody on this call, I hope, or somewhere is aspiring entrepreneur person, aspiring entrepreneur, and they're asking themselves, how can I get to my success? And I will challenge every person, right, to take imperfect action, and something perfect will happen along the way. But if you think it's just magically going to happen to you and that one straight stream of income to your Lambo is going to happen, you're wrong. You've been misguided or you don't understand business like I did. Don't make that mistake. You will fail over, around, and up. The difference is that you will keep pivoting, changing, and adapting until you find your lane. And when you find your lane, grasp onto it and let no one else change you from that mission. Do not let them distract you. Do not get shiny object syndrome. Do not go off base from that. Just stay with that mission. Stay on it. Stay focused.
So 100%. That's 100%. So what do you offer, Voltage, for a client who's looking for your service? What can you offer?
Well, the one thing I like to clarify, because some people come to this conclusion because, the interwebs. We're not a course. I don't offer a program. There's no $29.99 this and that kind of nonsense. I don't believe in any of that. I believe in true management one-on-one. If I help you, I walk with you. If my team walks with you, if we show you exactly what we've done so you can replicate it, then there is much more benefit in it for you. And for me, the byproduct is if we do a great job, part of my performance-driven initiative within Voltage is that you earn a expected amount of profit from our relationship, or we keep going and you don't pay part of my performance bonus on that if we don't achieve it. And more importantly, for you to achieve that 100K in net profit goal is that you have a business as a going concern. With that going concern, eventually I want to look at acquiring it. That's my big, hairy, audacious goal. So as I work with individuals over a 12-month period and give them my team, our internal software behind our NDA, our processes, we teach them exactly what we do. We show them our brands. We show them how to build their own brand if they're brand new and wanting to get to market. how much capital to deploy, the time, energy, attention, and money to do it correctly, and the whole process for an expected outcome, because I want that business to be a saleable asset, a going concern in 3 to 5 years. Because I have private equity that is banging down my door constantly saying, here's money, where's a business, here's money, where's a business? And I'm like, hold up, we'll find one. And so we've raised up businesses that are coming to acquisition. Okay, I've got one right now that is at 6 million and he wants to hit 10 million in 2 more years. And we're talking now about acquiring that brand from him because he started from, scratch with us. And now he's built to 6 million. I got another one that's at 14 million. I got a couple more that are at the 3 to 5 million that will mature in the next 2 to 3 years. And so as we look to the market to acquire companies that exist that are outside of our network, I'm also giving people an opportunity to build inside my network to an exit while we help them through that process. So again, this is more incubator style service providing with people, and it's limited in its scope. I typically
it's almost like private managing.
It is
one-on-one. You're literally taking them by the hand. This is how we're going to do it step by step.
That's why I limit it, and I only accept about 5 people a month if I find those 5 people a month. For the last 2 months, I really haven't found but a couple people that honestly really fit the criteria for what we're after, and the other ones they don't. And that's okay. It's just not going to work for all of us, to do this kind of business. You have to think about the business of e-com more like a franchise, more like not a side hustle or a hobby kind of thing. That was, yesteryear. That was 10 years ago. People have missed that.
As an actual business.
You got to build a real business with intrinsic value. Okay. You got to stay compliant for the language, the business, the IRS, the FTC. You need to build a real business. You yourself, LLC structured. You need to have intellectual property. You need to think about the product or service you're selling. You need to build a real business. Doing that is like building a real house with the right materials. It will appreciate. It will become a saleable asset. Everything you're deploying into it now, even the cash flow and stuff, is to build that business with the end in mind, right? That someone else is going to come in and say, hey, good job. You built a profitable company. Here's your, X $1 million exit, and go do it again, right? Do it faster this time. Do it more capitalized. And that is, I know, what most people eventually want to see from a business, right? They don't necessarily want to keep working forever. They want to know that if I work for a while and I build this thing, that someone else finds value in it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's a fulfillment of your own drive and desire, but the fact that you've actually created something that somebody else wants. And there's an important self-fulfilling prophecy in all of that, right? And I help people with my team and group. In fact, everybody who coaches in my group, who is a consultant that manages with our clients, was built from scratch. They came in as a brand builder and business builder with us. They built their company up to a successful state, and now they dedicate some of their time teaching the next group of people who come in how to build just like they did, right? So everybody inside of my ecosystem built with us. So I don't have any employees. My operations and team are structured as more like mercenaries. When we buy a company, we parachute a mercenary in. All right, you're the operator. You know how to run this thing. You know how well to do it. We bring them in. We show them how to do it. As we go out now, we've got a mission-based philosophy going forward with a company called Patriot Growth Capital. Okay, we're co-founding and operators within that business. You can check it out at patriotgrowthcapital.com. Veteran-backed, veteran-owned, veteran-initiated. They help 16,000 veterans last year. Very important, right? And in that, we're going to be acquiring these companies. First one will close hopefully in 2 weeks. That will be the first one in which we're going to invest operations into the operators themselves and raise them up into that business, helping themselves transition out of the military, transition into opportunities, support their families. In 5 years, they have an opportunity to buy that company away from us. And we have a goal in 5 years to acquire 50 of those. Wow. So with that, we're going to be helping multiple veterans in that mission over the coming years. And so those are the private equity aspects of what we're doing for acquisition. And we're acquiring all kinds of private label companies with physical products.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah. Turned it into a mission.
Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about your book? What can we find in it? Why should we buy it? Why should we get it?
Well, if you're interested in getting started, certainly it's going to help you understand that with case studies and some templates and resources you can look through, as well as each chapter was built to go through our 5 steps of our playbook. Okay. And each chapter is actually a podcast from my High Voltage Business Builders podcast, High Voltage Business Builders podcast. That's a mouthful. And they were interviewed in the process of their expertise around one of the areas of focus that we have in the business, from finance to product research to the business and marketing to manufacturing to logistics and stuff. So each of those chapters builds on those principles and gives you case studies and information around that in a conversational style format. People actually really like it. So it's not like a novel. It's not like a guidebook. It's actually a strategy book. It's teaching you the strategy of building a multi 7, 8-figure, even 9-figure e-commerce business. And so if you're a business already, if you want to get involved in e-commerce, it's going to help you understand that. If you are already in e-commerce, it can probably give you some pro tips and information about how to make your business more profitable or make it to a growth or scalable position. So that's where the book was oriented, was really to kind of be a strategy guide on the reasons to get involved in some of the strategies about how to make it profitable.
All right.
Build and automated, and since the title, of course.
What about the podcast? What information, what gems can we find in your podcast?
So we are over 150 episodes in now. And I've interviewed billionaires and millionaires and people getting started. Case studies from our group. We've talked about finances, and we've talked about wealth without Wall Street alternatives too. So about 60, 70% of it is all e-commerce focused, and some area of support around an e-commerce, even TikTok shops or Shopify or paid traffic and media and Amazon, of course. And the other 20% is really about generating wealth, keeping wealth, alternatives to investing your money in things like maybe real estate, or renting what's called an infinite banking concept, which is the concept of becoming your own banker and exiting the banking system. So your family never has to go into a banking system ever again. And then using that as a positive way to deploy capital and create automation of capital in the marketplaces. And so we talk about a lot of those various, including, stories of opportunity and struggle and things that go through the entrepreneurial spirit to help people kind of listen to multiple stories of people failing and succeeding in business.
Wow. Super informative. Super informative.
It's a fun gig.
I can imagine. I mean, 17 years, right? In the making.
Yeah. In the making.
Still to come. I
think so. I'm not out of the game yet. I'm only 48, and I think I got a lot left in me.
But just you were there before. It's like you were there at a beautiful time and where before everything was initiating.
Yeah,
so
it's fun to watch.
Yeah, you have more experience and knowledge than the tsunami of when the FBA started coming out and everybody
all of it, dude,
just promoting it. And yes.
Yeah. Watching these systems come online, watching the growth, and I had an opportunity. Somebody might be sitting here going, okay, well, why aren't you a billionaire? When I actually had a chance to be a billionaire and I turned it down. And the reason I turned it down is because my mentor is a billionaire. And when I saw the way his life worked and the way things worked for him and some of the struggles and opportunities he has that I just didn't want to take on. Remember, I traveled so much. And I made a pact with my wife that once we got going, I didn't want to travel anymore. And so I've traveled maybe 5 times in 17 years away from my family for maybe 1 to 2 days, max 3. The rest of the time they come along with me. So that was just a commitment to what the purpose and value of my family was. So we homeschool our girls. I have 4 daughters. We live on 50 acres in the country. My lifestyle as a business was what was more important to my family than what I could make in the world. And so when the opportunities came to do some bigger deals and to make some, real cost of opportunity, let's call it, decisions so that I could decide which direction to go, I just didn't feel that it was the right purpose. We raised $100 million in capital in Voltage. I turned that down in 2021 once I got to the end of the road before we signed the papers and realized it wasn't the right thing to do. It wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right position in the market. And I could see that we would take the opportunity and it would become grand on one side and it would be a complete failure on the other. And so when we realized that the risk of that was, outweighed the reward, we simply paused and stopped the whole activity. To some people's chagrin, to others like, hey, thanks so much for not letting us get into that. So I had these opportunities. I just turned them down because I built the purpose and value over profit.
Yeah. I mean, you're not willing to, there's certain things in life as a businessman, you're not willing to negotiate.
Boy, it's so easy.
That's perfect.
But it's so easy to skirt that line at times, brother. It's so easy to skirt the ethical line or the integrity line or the just, it would look so great in the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But somebody gets left behind. Somebody might get hurt on accident or on purpose. And, I had recognized through my own personal faith and walk that I was not willing to sacrifice those things for worldly gain.
Yeah.
I wasn't willing to compromise that. I want to slide into heaven with my hair on fire 5 minutes before the devil knows I'm there. And the last thing to do that is that he knows I'm coming. Right.
I hear that.
Yep.
Last question before we go. And I need to ask because I've had plenty of guests who have stated they have billionaires as somebody that they can be advised, right? Get advice from. Like
Yep.
how's that work in your experience? How does that how I can't even talk.
Remember the first principle of relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does
So
that
you,
help you?
well, here's how it helped me. While I didn't go after the things
Mm,
that they were important, or important towards them and what they wanted to do and how they were operating in business, the realization came from having that relationship
mm,
and from realizing that while it looked good and it's good for them, it wasn't good for me. And the only reason I could understand that was because, I had been humbled in life and business and finances. I have remembered and constantly remembered where I came from so that I could appreciate where I'm at and not constantly wanting more. And the push to constantly want more out of fear or desperation or whatever will always, almost and always, lead you to a point where you will compromise your beliefs.
mm.
And so you have to look at that and say, what am I willing to do? What am I not willing to do? It's the guy who was one of the first people to experience the internet and be a part of that, as many millions of people were once upon a time. I could have started up porn servers and made $1 billion. You know what I'm saying? Like we were
Yeah,
online at the
yeah.
cusp of all these things we could have done and would have taken huge advantage of. I just didn't. I didn't want to. That's not who I am. It's not the core. It's not my belief. And could I have become the other things? Absolutely. And into relationships, I've made great relationships with all kinds of people, from celebrities to people at the top of our government to people in high powered positions. And it doesn't, I'm not celebrity starstruck. I'm not like, I got to be that person. And while these people have great money and this person has this great influence, and what I saw was abundance, which was cool because that really opened my mind to what's possible. And just like, wow, I'm not thinking big enough, but at the same time, what am I not thinking big enough about? Right. And it doesn't always come back to the finances. It can't. You will fail. From somebody who has failed at that purpose and drive, that's what led me to the bankruptcy. You can't fail at that. So I came up with a different thing, my 5Fs, right? Faith, family, friends, finances, and freedom. If those 5Fs are not in this deal, I'm out.
Mm.
And I won't compromise that. Those are my 5Fs. That's my profits, right? Purpose and value equal profits. Finances is just one piece of it. It's actually way down on the bottom, right? Freedom to do the things with the family and the people that I want. Money as an object, as a tool, is an object like a hammer to build a house that I can use to do those different things. It doesn't beget the house. The house is the asset, not the tool. People think the tool is the asset. That's the money. It's not. It's the house. And once you start to understand that value, your perception of money and risking money changes greatly. And that was one of the major things I took away from those relationships.
Mm. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the great Neil. That's amazing, man. I love the fact when it came to your story that you always kept who you were, and you were never afraid to evolve as a person and evolve in your values. But at the same way of form, you always stuck to who you are and what you believe in. And I think, and when it comes to business, right, it's different types of business around the world, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the things. Like I've been doing this for 4 years. This is actually my 200 episode, right? And I've
Congrats.
talked. I've Thank you. I have the opportunity to speak to amazing individuals like yourself. And one thing I see them lose themselves is that they lose themselves.
Yeah.
They don't stay true to themselves. They're,
That's right.
the struggle, daily struggle, the economy struggle. We all have these internal and in our surrounding struggles, and we lose ourselves in it.
That's
And
right.
you've been able to continue to keep that for over 17 years. And even at the peak of your success, right? You still say no.
It just
This is what
wasn't.
it,
It
yeah,
wasn't the right no. Yeah.
that's something to admire.
There's no, and as I say, and there's like and there's KNOW, which should really be
Mhm.
the answer to most things. Like when I talk to my children, I just don't flat tell them no. I tell them I don't know. Let's figure this out, right? Because there might be a way to figure it out. There might be a compromise that benefits them, not just to tell them point blank no. No is a
Mhm.
hard word to hear, especially at the age children are when they're growing and their maturity and they're trying to figure things out. And if I want them to find a way around a problem, then I can't just tell them no. I got to say no, KNOW. I don't know. You don't know. Let's figure this out. It isn't just a hard no, it can't be surpassed. And I got that in my childhood. So I was like, no is not the answer to everything, right? And so with the creativity of business and life, no is just a way to find a way to solve the problem and get around it. Okay. And some people were like, well, Neil, you can't do that when you're a doctor. Well, no, man, that may be for you because that's a hard track and a certification. And you got to stay on those boundaries. You got to stay on those lines. If you're going to be a nurse, you got to stay in those lines. If you're going to practice law, you got to stay in those lines. And that's fine because some people need those lines. My partner does, my partner in business. My partner in life is an RN and a BSN by trade. She stays in the lines. Hers, there are certain hard and fast rules. There are rules to play. When we play games, she's got to play by the rules. Me, I'm like, yeah. She's like, nope, there's a rule. Okay, got it. For me, there's guidelines. There are guidelines in which there are certain hard and fast rules with finances and money and IRS and stuff you don't play hardball with. But there are lines where everything else becomes a no, a K-N-O-W. I don't know. Let's figure it out. Let's negotiate it. It's the art of the deal. Let's figure out where you and I make compromise, where this deal works or where it doesn't deal. But let's figure it out. It can't just be a hard no.
I love it.
Until it's a hell no. When it's a hell no, you're out, right?
I love it. Dude, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, man.
My pleasure, brother.
This has been a masterclass in itself. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Before we go, tell the people they can find your service. Your business, Voltage, social media.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I would say before I get into that, for people who are listening to this, maybe still listening to me, hopefully that's cool because I've enjoyed my time and you've been a wonderful host. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd say people need to remember that their opportunity begins at the end of their excuses. All right. Everybody has them. My father-in-law says, everybody has one and they all stink. There's a reason for that, right? Because we all have them. So at the end of the day, you got to choose your hard. Life is hard at times. Being broke is hard. Been there, done that. Going bankrupt is hard. Being risk adverse in some ways or too risky is hard, right? Stepping out on faith, that's hard. Building a business, that's hard. Maybe going to that job you don't want to go to. That's hard. Supporting your family and doing the things you don't want to. If you're out there making it happen, driving an Uber, whatever it takes to put food on the table and take care, that's hard too. Especially for the men out there, right? Building a business and taking risk at different levels, that's hard too. Being poor, that's hard, right? But you're going to choose your hard. And at the end of that, it's usually just excuses that are not creating opportunity. And you got to figure out how to make it go, right? And, the other part of that is just remembering that take imperfect action. Whatever you do today, at some point listening to this, I hope you take imperfect action on whatever it is. Something perfect is going to happen. It takes time, it takes energy, a little bit of luck in business, just the right time, right place, right relationship, and so much can change. If any of that resonates with you and you want to check out my podcast or you want to check out what we're doing or go watch our VSL where Kevin Harrington, who is my mentor, goes through with me and talks about our as seen on TV strategy for e-commerce companies, both online and offline, then go to voltagedm.com, voltagedigitalmarketing.com. Check out that free training. Take a look at what's going on and see what we're doing at Voltage. Check out the podcast, listen to a few episodes. If anything resonates with you, reach out, talk to me. There's no sales team. When you text, you're actually going to get me or maybe Lennon, depending upon where you come in at. And we're going to have a personal conversation and see if what we're doing makes sense for you. If you're an aspiring or a current entrepreneur, we'll see what happens.
Boom. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you give him a text or call. Go check out his website. Definitely recommend it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Mr.Jones510. Go follow us on Facebook, Deal Marketing Diaz. Like and subscribe our YouTube channel, Deal Talk TV. I'm out, guys. Have a good night.